is y'all don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff. What's up, compadres? I know you guys missed me last week here, but I'm back and better than ever. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I know we don't have a lot of people that watch it live. You know, we got a lot of rewatchers and stuff, but I know the Sones family watches us, so I know that the Sones family missed me on last week's show.
You
But
missed
I'm
the
here.
Stones family reunion last week. His dad was
Always.
also here. His dad was in his account. So
Man.
Evan Sones was commenting on Evan Sones, and it was.
So I missed
you missed the through looking.
It was
glass
hilarious.
As Evan was making a good point, it was like in the chat, Evan Sones.
all of a sudden
Point.
he's writing.
Hilarious.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I'm like,
That's
Evan, I
awesome.
agree, it's a good point, but man, you really have to compliment yourself.
Hi Dane. Listen, you know, you're so full of yourself, Evan. Unbelievable, man. Don't be doing that stuff.
I mean, what can I say? What can I say?
He was spot on, but you know.
Yeah, he was, right? It's impressive. That's very impressive of you.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyways, Japan. Interesting race to say the least, right? I mean,
Yeah.
A lot
kinda
of
weird.
mixed-up strategy.
yeah,
Mixed-up strategy.
absolutely. I mean, you saw, yes, again, you know, obviously, you know, I kind of said this to myself. Obviously, I was like, I kind of told you, Vish, a little bit last week when I gave you my predictions. I said, there's no way Max is not going to come out here and kick everybody's ass after what happened last week, or, you know, the week before in Australia. So I think that's exactly what happened. And obviously, Checo was on point too. And then the Ferraris, which seems like the theme for 2024 anyways. It's if Red Bull somehow, you know, does something that they don't finish the race, or they don't even, you know, get to start, or they have reliability issues, it's going to be Ferrari at this point. I mean, it could change, right? It's still early in the season, but right now it's those two and everybody else. I mean, you still got Mercedes and McLaren kind of, you know, trying to creep up and doing their thing, but
The Mercedes is garbage.
the Mercedes is garbage. So McLaren looks all right. But right now it's really right. I mean, you even see the top 10 aside from maybe, well, I mean, the top 10 overall, it's Red Bull, Ferrari. After that, what is it? Mercedes, McLaren, or
McLaren.
Mercedes.
McLaren, Mercedes, and then Aston Martin, right? Like it's those in the top 10 right there. So nothing's really changed from last year, except, you know, Ferrari's off to a hotter start, and McLaren as well. So, but it was interesting. You got to see some action, you know, in the top 10. A little bit of a, you know, different start for Leclerc, right? A great race for Leclerc, a great race for Carlito again. Which I'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah,
but
the early red flag mixed up all the strategies
yeah,
and that made it interesting because everyone was out of sequence the whole race, and you know weren't sure if they need to pit again, and then that kind of did mix it up a little bit. You had mixed strategies all over the place because they were able to change their tires a couple of laps in. So,
well, and if I'm not mistaken,
with no penalty.
If I'm not mistaken, Leclerc went like 24, 25 laps on mediums, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was pretty interesting to see, considering the amount of deg that the circuit, this specific circuit in Japan, has. Ferrari's had issues with tire degradation in the past. Seem to be doing a pretty good job this year so far, right?
Yeah, and I mean, also the hard tires were funny enough. it seemed like they were running either just as good as the mediums or maybe even a little bit better at some points. You saw a lot of these guys, you had teams that put on the mediums and, were running about the same times as the guys that were running the hards. So degradation really wasn't that big of an issue there. This race, I think the temperature might have had something to play with that. It's a different time of year than we're used to seeing in Japan. We're kind of used to seeing it towards the end of the year, traditionally for a Formula One season. But because they switched it this year to being so early in the season, you get to see a little bit different dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they put the 3 hardest compounds, which is I think why the hards actually held up pretty well in relation to the mediums. I mean, they were all harder compounds.
Yeah, they were. I kind of have a question for you guys because that I was having an issue with watching this race altogether. Was there anything that kind of surprised you, really overall, in this race?
I'll throw one out there.
Yeah.
So I think Hamilton's quit. Because he actually radioed to the Mercedes. Like, this came out a little bit later because all they played on the air was Mercedes asking him to let Russell through. Turns out he initiated that and was like,
I saw that.
he was
Yeah.
like, "Do you want to let him through?" And they're like, "Okay, I guess."
Yeah.
And he probably would have finished in front of him because Russell didn't pull away, and all of his gap came in the 2 pit stops because they pitted. He got priority because he was in first. The undercut was big here. If you were going an extra lap, you were losing 4 or 5 seconds, and Hamilton did that twice because there were so many pit stops. And I'm like, dude, you're just gonna let Boy George through? All right, then he's quit. He's ready to go to Ferrari. He's done.
Okay. So that kind of plays into this question. I have a 2-part question. If you're a Ferrari fan, are you concerned? Two ways, right? Are you concerned at the way that things are going with Hamilton right now, the way he's driving? And are you concerned that Sainz is looking so damn good right now? Or is that just a product of where they are, where they are considering what's going to happen next year? Like, Sainz is driving for a really good seat somewhere, and Hamilton knows he's on the way out, so he really doesn't give a crap. Or is it more than just that? I don't know, whoever wants to kind of take that.
You can go.
I mean, I'll take this one. Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. Hamilton knows where he's going to be next year. Look at that. My dad commented again. Hamilton knows where he's going to be next year. Hamilton knows, he's got that seat secured. And we've been saying all year, like I've been saying, he's probably going to be the number one storyline of the season. Carlos Sainz is really pushing as hard as he can. He's focused in, he's locked in, and he's driving out of his mind. He's shown that he is, a top 5 to 7 driver in Formula One right now. He deserves to be in one of these top seats. He deserves to be in one of these cars that are fighting for championships and fighting for race wins and poles. So I think that realistically, just like you said, it's a great assessment that one's secured in where he's at and knows what's going to happen with him, and the other one is just kind of out there trying to do the best that he can every single time because he needs to prove himself. Which kind of is it sucks for Carlos Sainz because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen. He could be out of his seat completely next year. I mean, realistically, there's a lot of rumors that are going around. Mercedes might want the kid from Formula 2, and
Vettel.
So if Vettel, Vettel's out there. There's so many different theories that are going on about where everybody would be. We don't know if Checo's going to be in the Red Bull next year. Maybe he'll get that seat. There's so many different permeations of possibilities that there could be a seat opening someplace for Carlos. But at the end of the day, he just doesn't know yet. And if you're somebody like that, it's like an NFL player playing on a franchise tag or a 1-year contract. You're going to play out of your mind because you want that next contract.
So you're not too concerned, Vish. Are you concerned at all about it, or not really?
Not about Hamilton. I think. Well, no, because look, Hamilton he's Hamilton. He's probably the best driver ever. So no, I'm not worried about him. I am worried that because look, 5 years from now, is Hamilton going to be driving? Probably not. But you might have picked the wrong horse between Leclerc and Sainz. I think that would be a bigger concern than because I mean there's not much between them. But Leclerc had the long-term contract, Sainz didn't, so it's like a no-brainer in terms of what they had to do from that perspective. But it's not clear, and it never has been to me at least, that Leclerc is better than Sainz. Hamilton's an otherworldly thing. So you go get the Hamilton, we can get the Hamilton. So if like somehow Max is available, you would take the top. You would take Lando Norris and punt his ass right out of McLaren if you could stick Max in that seat. Like, let's be real. Lando, we have all behind. I mean, that's what happened to Sainz. I mean, you can get Hamilton, and he had to be the casualty. But I'd be more worried about 2 or 3 years from now, Hamilton's retired. You really wish you had Sainz instead of Leclerc, versus Hamilton actually not. He'll be fine. He's Hamilton,
right?
Yeah, because even Alonso could still has it, right? I mean, it's not these guys are the way that everything is. It's still obviously physically draining, but as it's gotten more computerized and less mechanical, like they're not shifting. Like even if you watch Senna drive, like he's shifting his gear, like you can do this a lot longer.
That's why the older guys, even if you bring Vettel back and you put him in a Red Bull, he's gonna kick your ass. Right?
Yeah, you can still. Yeah, they that's why they're able to extend like an extra 10 years over what they used to be able to. Right. So I mean, I'm not really worried about him like aging out of it. It's more just I think he's done with Mercedes. The car sucks. and I think he's by the way, he did the same thing as last year at McLaren. And it's not that similar. And I was like, I can't believe he's leaving McLaren to go to Mercedes, but he saw the writing on the wall at McLaren and knew what was coming. And I have a feeling, Mercedes might be headed that same direction. They're having all sorts of issues, personnel issues. I don't know how much longer Toto wants to stick around there. It is, that they could be in for a pretty longer dip than people. I mean, they completely got this car concept wrong. But they have not. Yeah. They seem to have, they made strides last year. They seem to have fallen further and further behind, not just Red Bull, but Ferrari and McLaren.
And well, here's the thing, right? Some of these other teams like Aston Martin and even Ferrari, right? We keep hearing how hard they're going after some of these top talented engineers from Red Bull and from and you don't. I mean. The biggest rumor you heard from Mercedes was they were trying to get Max over there and that they would do whatever they can to get him and yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, if you're Max, you look at that car concept now, you look at the product there, you don't sit there and go, yeah, that's the team that I want to go to, right? Like, you just you don't do that. No, if anything, you probably rather go to Aston Martin than you rather go to Mercedes at this point. Yeah. Because you know that Lawrence Stroll is going to put money into that.
There's money going into it. They've gotten it wrong.
Yeah, true.
And there's no good way to get out of that.
Behind.
Yeah, and there's no. They waste a lot of time with that no side pods concept, and they're behind. And we talked about this a lot. The cost cap. It's not you can just throw a bunch of money at it and catch up.
Right.
But they appear to have, again, they made those strides last year. It looks like they've taken a step back in relation to McLaren and Ferrari. Like. As much as Max is still dominating, like it is based like from the first race to this race, it is 20 seconds from first to third. He was full multiple pit stop windows up in the first race. Like it doesn't. I mean, he's still cruising to victory, but it is tightening somewhat, but not from the Mercedes standpoint. And even with the mixed ups, go ahead.
I was going to say, for the whole tightening up, you could look at even the race, the Suzuka race last year. The race this year, they were a lot tighter this year than they were last year. So, it's true. You can't see Max wanting to go anyplace else. Right now, I think the real big thing, with him moving is going to be Adrian. Adrian Newey. If some team can tempt him away and some team can get him. Over there, that's what's really going to make the only way that you'd make a play for Max. He's already put his all his eggs in that basket, and he knows that Adrian Newey is the best designer and aerodynamicist in Formula One, and he makes the best cars, and he always has, and so unless a team like Aston Martin can, and I think Aston would be the one team that could do it, could tempt Adrian Newey away, he doesn't leave that team. There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, even if Ferrari tempts him and gets him out of there, right? And he goes to Ferrari. It's not Max is not going to go to Ferrari.
But this is also, I mean, this is not. If he moves, it would not be right now. It'd be closer to 2026 with the car redesign. At this point, that this thing is gone. Like Red Bull has it for the next, unless again,
2 years.
Well, yeah, unless they do what they did at the end of the Mercedes dominant era. We're like, we're just gonna ban a bunch of the crap that gives you an advantage, and you guys figure it out.
Hey, that's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
That's how it tightened so much in that last year. They basically, I mean, you look at the Mercedes and how radically it changed the last year of the whole car because they banned a lot of the stuff that was giving them an advantage, and he actually further did it in this new iteration. Although it's a level playing field at that point, because everyone's got a redesign. But like one of the ways Mercedes had a huge advantage was the airflow through the tires, so they forced closed tires. That's why there's no gaps in the tires anymore. So we'll see if they react the other way and look at like what is Red Bull doing, and do we start banning some of those? And in the 2026 cars come out, have they banned some of the stuff that's giving them an advantage right now? But they definitely these cars are still disadvantaged against what Mercedes was doing well last time, in particular the airflow through the tires. They got that exactly right, and it's one of the reasons they dominated that whole era. They were able to generate downforce and drag off of that. But what that also did, which is why they allegedly banned and probably banned, is that creates a bad wake, dirty air behind the car. So that you remember these regulations were designed to make overtaking easier and make cars be able to follow more closely. So I don't really think that's working, to be honest. It's still just if you have DRS, you can pass. Otherwise, I mean, we're not seeing a lot.
They're even talking about switching back to the 16-inch tires in 2026. They've been talking about that. Now with the new regulations because of that same thing. These new tires or these new 18-inch wheels, they're not working as well as I thought they were going to.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I still the vast majority of I mean, the whole goal of some of this was to actually get rid of DRS. Like, you'll actually be able to overtake when it's not happening. And they really did. It's still just DRS aided to make overtakes. So this didn't really work the way it was supposed to.
Gotcha.
And it's interesting if you watch older races before DRS, like they actually had to overtake on track. No, it's completely different strategy now. They're like, let me. All I gotta do is stay within a second. Well, stay within a second, and then that's gonna be my overtaking opportunity, and then it was totally different when you watch it because you had to do it without it. So
yeah, right now if there was no DRS involved, I mean,
well, it would change the strategy around, right? You'd be more aggressive. Like you would try to ride the gearbox into the straight. Like now you're just like, I just need to be within a second at the line, the detection.
Yep.
And even if you're not close enough to overtake there, the jump you get will make sure you're close enough to the next lap.
Right.
Or obviously Japan, there was only one DRS zone. Sometimes it was 2 or 3. You use the first DRS zone to get right on there, and the second one to overtake.
Right.
Yeah, so it's caused but before it's just different strategy. You'd have to be more aggressive. You'd force your way in more and all that. Now it's just like
based off. I mean, the safety of these cars now is a lot better, right? The safety standards and everything, and the whole entire sport is a lot better now. So more aggressive driving might be.
But you can't do it. The problem with these cars, though, is, and again, this is what they tried to fix, and I don't think they really did. The old cars were not as aero dependent; they were power dependent. It was all engine power. Like they sounded different. So you could follow more closely. But the whole point, the more that it became aerodynamic drag to generate speed, that's the more dirty air behind, which means you can't even follow. I mean, there was a video, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. This I don't know if you guys have seen YouTube. I think it's called Chain Bear. They do these F1 analysis, like technical, but. And they were showing how, I forget which track it was. It might have been Hungary, but just how much wake is generated off the lead car if you're behind it, and how much it disturbs the car behind, and how far that trail goes. It's like several cars back, you're still feeling that wake, and it lingers there because that's how much the air is being.
And then there's no way you can pass.
Well, you can't stay close enough, so the DRS is there, to then be close enough to overtake on the straight. So the DRS means if you're within a second, you get such a boost on the straight, you can still overtake. So it's compensating for that.
Right.
Yeah, before you were able to follow a lot more closely because the card concepts were just completely different. And so then you were able to, stay close enough to actually make the normal overtake. So I still think they've solved that. And the more they've gone to hybrid engines, less engine power, more aerodynamics, it just makes the problem worse. But the design of these cars was supposed to, try to undo some of that, and I don't think it's worked.
Well, I know we went completely off here.
Anyway, Max good.
Yeah, Max good. Max won.
Max good.
Won,
Max drive good. Max win.
See you later.
Ricardo shit. There we go.
Yeah, we know one person that's not going to be driving.
Oh boy, next season. Oh boy, he's lost.
Poor guy, man.
We talked about this. Was it on the last show, Evan, or the show before that? That people haven't really noticed that Yuki's whipping his ass, and people noticed this time when he just took out Albon.
Oh yeah.
Poor Williams without their replacement chassis, had to send it back to the factory again.
Well, and it's compounded on the fact that the Daniel Ricciardo's been complaining and saying that it's his chassis, that's the reason why he's not doing so good. He's not comfortable with the chassis, so they're giving him a brand new chassis. So you got him taking out a Williams to now they don't have an extra chassis, and they're just going to say, okay, here you go, try this new chassis, see if you feel better in it. He's complaining about that. But yeah, Yuki was kicking. He did get quite up to the top 8 that I predicted that he was going to, or said that he was going to. But I mean, we were just talking about how a lot of the passes were done on DRS. Man, he was making some crazy passes throughout the race. Turns 3, 4, 5, right in those S's. He was making some.
Talk about an aggressive driver, right?
Yeah, he was being super aggressive. So
I think I honestly think just
he wanted to show out.
I think based off of the way he's been driving lately, he's a guy that could really probably make some noise in a really good car. I think that he has the talent to do that. I know he's a little crazy and sometimes he goes off the rails a little bit, right? But sometimes you need to be a little. I mean, look, let's be honest. You got to be a little nuts to drive an F1 car, regardless.
Yeah.
We
also said the same thing about Max.
Yeah,
we also said the same thing about Max when he first started. He's too hyper aggressive. He's drives too much with his emotion. It's the same type of thing. That's how we were talking about Yuki 2 years ago. He's too emotional. He's too crazy. He's too out there. But at the end of the day, now he's kind of winded down. He's kind of focused it in, and the aggression's being shown on the track, and it's being shown just like on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, whatever it was, that he did good. I mean, he did top 10 is still in the points, and he's been, like we said, kicking Danny Rick's butt. So
Yuki for Red Bull, baby. Yuki for the Red Bull seat. Let's go. That'd be.
I still say Aston Martin.
Two hotheads like that, because Max. You imagine Max and Yuki going at it. Yeah. That could be interesting. That could be some
Me and Vish were talking about
arts going on there.
Me and Vish were talking about. We were saying he's probably going to go to Aston because he's going to be with that Honda engine.
Yeah, right.
Because Aston's getting that Honda engine, so. What was it, last week or the week before we talked about that, Vish? How we were thinking, that might be the seat. When Daddy Stroll finally decides to kick his son out of a car.
It's come. Well, Alonso's going to either retire or move to another car, another team too. Yeah. So you never know. Maybe Audi comes calling for Alonso or something. All right, so okay, let's kind of reel it back in, right? Let's talk a little bit about the predictions real quick. We got a couple minutes anyways left to close this out. Max Leclerc signs for Mr. Jazz, probably closer. Well, actually, Evan, you're the one that was closest. Max and Checo, you had that right. You just missed out on Lando, excuse me, Lando Norris. And then Vish, you nailed it, bro.
I believe in Carlito. And that was my downfall.
Well, I believed in him in P3 and Max in P1, but Leclerc was completely off. So, although driver of the day, look, all 4 races this year, driver of the day has been a Ferrari. That counts Oli Behrman in there as well. So it hasn't only been Sainz and Leclerc. But Leclerc did a good job this past weekend, finishing in P4 after starting in 8, not qualifying not doing well in qualifying, and so then you got Sainz finishing in P3, which Sainz is right now. Sainz is
Yeah, if you look, this is the
Again,
driver's
Leclerc's ass,
standing.
if you ask me.
Well, yeah. If you look at the driver's stands, because Sainz obviously missed a race,
Right.
which is why Leclerc
Yeah.
was barely in front of him. But
Yep.
I do have to say though, shout out to Carly. She did call Max, Checo, and Carlos Sainz 1, 2, and 3 in her prediction, and she, we talked about this before the show. Hindsight may be a little part of this, but she was saying her Lando top 5 was her wild card. She just said Lando wild card, but we'll see. Maybe that's what she meant. Maybe it's not. But she did get 1, 2, and 3. I think that's the first person so far this year who's gotten all the top 3 right.
Nice. So, okay, I'll take it. We were all wrong.
Yeah,
we all
probably shout out for that one.
What are the standings looking like here? You got Max in the drivers championship. Max, Checo, and Carl. Is that right? Carlos? No, that was
it's Charles.
It's
the other
way, right? Leclerc and then
yeah.
and then Carlito, followed up by let's see if I can see that right. Lando.
Yeah, Lando, Piastri, Russell, Alonso, Hamilton,
and then your buddy Stroll. Friends for life, there, buddy. Yeah, and then the constructor. Well, I mean, the bottom 10 is
shocking that Red Bull's in first.
What?
Shocking.
Yep. Right now it's Red Bull and Ferrari, and then the rest of the group. Right now.
Well, I mean, so yeah, it's Red Bull, then Ferrari, and then McLaren's kind of by themselves.
Right.
And then it's Mercedes and Austin.
Yeah.
That's how I'm telling you, like, Mercedes has fallen off big time. And I've seen this from Hamilton before. When he left McLaren, you're like, what is he doing? And then it's like, welcome to the next 5 years of hell. and like, I think he saw like the direction this was going. And
right.
And obviously, like everyone, the Ferrari is the team, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, who's winning and who's losing races. Ferrari is still the premier team, so there's that draw as well. Like every driver wants to drive for Ferrari one day, right. But I think if he thought Mercedes had any chance of competing for race wins or championships, he does not leave. He knows they don't. He knows they don't, and he's gone.
I agree. And last but not
100%.
least, I think the biggest disappointment right now is Alpine. I just think what's going on over there is kind of sad. I mean,
it's a works team.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. You got 2 really good drivers over there, and they just can't figure it out right now. So,
Sainz maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, the car is completely screwed. That is an option. Alpine is an option for Sainz on a reboot. Like we got to start over.
Yeah, they got to start over.
They need a real.
I think it's Audi.
I would feel bad for Sainz if he.
I think it's Audi.
It could be. It could be.
I think it's Audi. I think Audi's going to push for him in 2026 hard. I think you're going to see, maybe if there's not a seat open for him in the next year, maybe you see Bottas get kicked out and he goes in, or he gets the Bottas seat, or because I think Zhou brings in so much money from the Chinese market that they're going to keep him there.
He's bad, man. I thought he had some talent. Yeah. He's just bad, man. Yeah. I don't know who's worse.
But he's going to do that. So exactly. But I think he's still going to keep that seat just because of that Chinese money. And then I think if Bottas gets taken out of that seat, you're going to see Carlos Sainz slide right up in there, because I really do think that Volkswagen Group car, from Audi by Audi is going to be somebody or a team that's going to want to contend, in the same vein as you saw Alpine when they came back. Or not even when they came back as Renault a few years ago, and they made the big splash and when it got Danny Rick left Red Bull that first
well, I
time.
guess, do we think Alpine's going to even stick in the sport at this point?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's a big question,
They're terrible. They don't have any, one of the reasons they're in there is you make money off being an engine supplier, but they don't have any teams. They were supposed to get Andretti's team, but they got cock blocked on that. So there's no, because that was going to bring a bunch of money in for them. That's not happening. Like, what is either they're going to reinvest in this, which is where I think they would try to get someone like Sainz. They need an actual lead driver, not a French pillow fight, which is what they have now. And
I like that.
Or they might just
It's
say, you know
beautiful.
what? Or they might say F this and pull out, maybe sell the whole thing to Andretti.
I mean, that's a possibility
that's
too.
Andretti's,
We would like to
that's
see
Andretti's
that.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like
That's
to see
in
that.
that would be his end. You know,
I'm okay.
they could sell the parts and everything. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's what they were talking about, was that they were gonna share the engine for the first year, and then the schematics and everything was going into the next one.
Yeah, until Cadillac was able to get up to speed on.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be GM, but Cadillac branded.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey,
hopefully that might happen. That's what we're all looking for.
Before we get out of here, Evan, we talked about Williams last week, and how they had pulled obviously when Albon wrecked, they took Logan's car and gave it to him. So I didn't realize until this weekend, till the race weekend, that they took the damaged car, repaired it, and then made Logan drive the broken car.
Yep.
And now Albon's
they had him drive that one.
Courtesy of Danny Rick, has wrecked the other one, which they've now sent back to the factory. It's gonna have 2 broken cars in China.
Yeah.
I don't understand how
you're talking about a team that's already strapped for cash, and they've had a wreck in 3 out of the 4 races, right? I think they've been wrecked in 3 out of the 4 races, or at least they've had incidents. So, I mean, you have the teams that have barely had any paint taken off of their cars, like Red Bulls. I don't think anybody's touched them, or even Ferraris have done so well. But even backmarker teams, you look at Haas. Haas has been having a decent year overall. For them, top 12, top 15, getting into Q2 for qualifying. For Hulkenberg, you're seeing stuff like that happen, and it's just like, for Williams, they just can't catch a break. They really just can't catch a break. And it sucks to see, because they are, again, like I said last week when we talked about this is, they are one of those classic teams. They are one of those, teams that were dominant. And I'm talking, these were the Red Bull teams of the early 90s, and the late 90s even, those Williams were the top of the top innovative cars. They were the first cars that had active, or one of the first cars to perfect active suspension on a Formula One car. These cars were lapping, so much faster than everybody else, because they had great leadership, and they had great, technology, and they had great designers, and they had all that stuff. But they've just fallen off so much to where they're a shell of themselves. And this is just, another step in showing that, and how, they're just not where they need to be. And it's another situation like what we were just talking about with Alpine. How long are they going to be on the grid for? How long are people going to want to keep on seeing them just for that name? So we'll see what happens, but it's sad to see. It's really sad to see a team like that fall off so far, and especially with drivers like Albon and Sargent. We want to see an American driver doing good, and Albon is one of the most likable drivers on the grid. He's friends with almost every single driver, no matter what.
Only time will tell, my friends. It's gonna be a lot to.
I mean, they've fallen off so long ago. It's time to be honest. Like, there's no point.
Yeah.
Basically, a venture capital firm bought the IP. They're trying to make money off of it. They're not really serious about winning anything. That's why they suck. They might as well just kill a team.
Exactly.
We'll see what happens. Anyways, we'll be back on next Tuesday, same time, same that channel, 9 o'clock. Follow us on Twitter at F1_5 reasons. We will also be back next week to preview China. It's the Chinese Grand Prix.
See, we'll figure out how many. Maybe we can do some kind of calculations to figure out how much Max will win by.
It's gonna be another DNF. No, I don't know.
How depends? Can Ricardo get close enough to the front to hit him?
Yes, I think he can. I think I'm gonna have to have a talk with him and see if we can.
Puts his foot on the floor into turn one.
Somehow he made it happen in Australia, right? His home race, he said, if I'm not going to win, I'm not going to let Red Bull win either. And, and it happened. So It's exciting times. Maybe we can do it again in China. Check us out on Tuesdays here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the button. Click the like button, not like the button. Don't like
you can like it too, but
you can like it, but click on it as well.
Click it while you're liking it.
And We'll be back at you next week with some China talk. So, and it's not political; it's just China for racing. That's it.
There you go.
We got baseball coming up. I know
Yep.
CCH is driving us crazy on the chat. We're going, man. Relax. Jesus. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.